Cinescope Review.
So that brings us to our review and interview of the film Raw by Julia Ducournau. So basically, we had the opportunity to interview Julia just for 9 minutes, which is amazing. I would have loved to have spoken to her more and asked her more questions, but 9 minutes just wasn't enough. So she's just directed and is releasing the film Raw, which is coming out in a couple of days, I think.
It comes out on this Friday, which is April the 7th. Not long to go until it's out, but fortunately you got to see it early, didn't you, Matt?
I did. I got a little preview, and I absolutely loved it. The plot is kind of, I don't want to give too much away, but it's like a girl called Justine has been brought up a whole life on nothing but vegetables. She's a complete and utter vegetarian. She will not eat meat. And she's aspiring to be a vet. So she's going to a vet college. And of course, when she goes to college, there's all these sort of frat parties and initiation tests that you must do in order to become one of them, as it were. So in her first week during this veterinary school, she's trying to fit in. She's so desperate to fit in. She'll do whatever she wants just to make friends and meet boys. And her sister's there as well. So she is huge on like peer pressure towards her. So she does these initiation tasks, which include eating raw meat. She gets covered in gunge and paint and blood and all these things. And it kind of changes her as a person. And she starts to emerge more and discovers a side to herself that she is super unsure of, and as it emerges, it's sort of this wild party girl with a bit of a cannibalistic side, which is where the horror steps in, and it all fits together so well. So we can't believe the trailer, can we?
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, this film is R-rated, or over here, it's 18, so it's not really suitable to play any of the sort of the language or obviously the content you wouldn't be able to see anyway. Because it's quite a controversial topic, and certainly quite the horror film. But we, like Matt said, we did get this interview with the director. She's incredibly talented. Matt absolutely loved the film.
I did.
So we've got this interview for you. So we hope you really, really enjoy it.
Hi, Lydia and Matt. How are you?
Hi, Julia. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, we're okay. So last night I went to see Raw in the cinema.
Cool. Where?
I went to View on in Star City in Birmingham.
Okay. How did it go for you?
I loved it. I really loved it. I'm quite a horror fan. Lydia's not so much a horror fan.
But did you like it anyway?
Yeah. But no, I really did like it. I thought it was different. I thought like it really played on my fears. Some scenes really got my anxiety. Some scenes, the blood and gore was getting getting my heartbeat going. Is this something that you aimed for? Is this something you were going for, like playing on back to basic fears?
Yeah. If by back to basics you mean everything that relates to your body and the way you can react to body transformations, because you can identify to it, because of course it's really close. It's something that can happen.
Yeah.
It's not something to which you can have the distance that supernatural can bring you. When you're talking about for example zombies, when you see a zombie transforming,
yeah,
you're not shaken to your core, because you know that it would never happen to you. And so you can't empathize with someone turning into a zombie. But someone having a very bad rash that drives her crazy is something you actually can empathize.
Yeah.
Because your body has a memory of probably previous rashes or things like this that you've already experienced. And that's if this is what you call back to basics. I really love playing with this, and actually that's why I love playing with the grammar of body horror, because I do believe that in the triviality of this body transformations, that sometimes people say it's gross. I find it gross as well, but I find it very endearing. The reason why I find it endearing is because they talk about an intimacy that we never share with anyone. This intimacy of the skin peeling off, of the sweat, of stink, of the hair. This is something that everyone hides to people. So when you see it on screen, you can identify yourself with your own experience, like it's the first time you talk about it to someone, And I do believe in this. I do believe in this universality of the body.
Yeah, I think I got that supernatural feel as well. I think the reality of this film really worked. When that scene with the rashes, I think you're spot on there. Yeah, that really grabbed me, caught my attention.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, the film, as the title goes, was very raw, like in how it was shot. You know, like the lighting, and there's no special effects, and it's almost like quite stripped back. Is that sort of a style that's very important to you? And did that sort of help set the tone of this film, do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. For me, I really wanted to make a movie that was that would portray bodies that are not sexualized or glamorized.
Yeah.
So I had to build a strategy for that as a director. So it was, for example, not covering the bodies in makeup. I did not want the bodies to be full of makeup. I did not use a smoke machine. I wanted a light that was pretty harsh on the body, that would show the dark rings and the pores and everything. So all this was very, very important, of course, in order to identify with these bodies that are suffering, and that we can take in our reality, that we really can talk to somehow.
Yeah.
And it was very, very important for me. And you have of course other strategies, like for example, you've seen that the temporality of the movie is really not Hollywoodian at all. It's really not fluid. It's not classic, like you go to one scene, this character takes you to another character, you see a conversation, and all this shit that you see in Hollywood movies. My movie is really full of impulses in the way that it's edited and in the way that it's written as well. It's like every scene is a scene in itself, and you get this kind of scene-to-scene thing that is a bit like a beat,
Yeah.
and you don't have installation shots. You don't have scenes in between, like to explain what happened before and stuff like that. It's really go from one impulse to another impulse. And I really try to build up the whole story like this, in a very organic and like a heartbeat,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I think that worked, but one thing I did notice was there didn't seem to be any main antagonists in the film. I almost felt myself feeling sympathetic towards Justine for being a cannibal, which is something that is illegal. Is this also something you were aiming for, I guess?
I like the fact that you have to remind everyone listening that it is illegal.
Yeah.
I like that. That's actually for me the two male parts. So Adrian and the father. I've always written them like heroes, like tragic heroes.
Yeah.
And it was actually those two parts were the easiest to write for me, because I really knew I knew that their eyes on my characters were like some kind of a projection of the way I wanted my audience to look at my characters. Like for example, the look of Adrian on Justine is really the way I want us to see Justine. So this look has to be non-sexual, full of love, of open-mindedness, of of tolerance, and that's why I like building up these characters, because for me they're like sunshines a bit, in the movie.
Yeah.
And everything that happens to them is always about love, actually, and they move me very much for that. And so the reason why you felt empathy for Justine, and that's of course my big goal in this movie, that was the main challenge of the writing actually, and the directing of course. The reason why you feel empathy for Justine is because one, your eyes are the eyes of Adrian on her. So we still have this character that looks at her not like she's a freak, but like she's a real person that he's concerned about.
Yeah.
Super important. And the second reason is because I put Justine, I confront her to a group that is hazing other people, that is anonymous, that is cold, that is cruel, that no one can relate to. It's impossible to relate to the hazing committee. And so she becomes our way of our, how can you say that, our emotion bearer. It means that in this universe that she enters, we feel like she feels.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that there's sort of a love interest in the film. We were wondering if you'd ever take a step away from horror or mystery films and kind of go for, would you ever direct maybe a sci-fi film or a romance film?
Well, not now.
Yeah.
You can never say never, obviously.
Yeah, true.
I do believe that in my movies I talk about love the way I I can talk about love. I don't think that you can talk about love in other ways. Like, for example, I couldn't make a Woody Allen movie, even though I like it
Yeah.
like that, but I could not build up a romance like that. It's not my language, and it's not also the way I feel love or see love. So if you ask me, I could write a romance, but it's going to be a romance a bit like Raw, but I would find it a romance,
Okay.
and that's the way I see it. But the thing is that I've had to spend a lot of energy trying to convince people that my language that mixes different genres, comedy, drama, and body horror, is a real language, and that it's something that is unified, and that it doesn't mean that you're going to be stuck into two genres and that people won't know what it is and stuff like that. When you go in the founding phase, it's something that you really have to fight for.
Yeah.
And I do believe that this language is mine, but it is, after all, only my first feature, even though I've done shorts before and a TV feature. But that's my first theatrical feature. I think I will need at least 10 years, and if not a lifetime, to craft my language.
Yeah.
It is, after all, a craft, this job.
Okay. Well, so we're running out of time, but real quickly before we do,
Yeah.
can I ask you what's in the pipeline? What's next for you?
I'm writing my second feature right now.
Okay.
As we speak. Actually, during this interview, I'm writing it because I'm that good.
No way. I'm multitasking.
Exactly. And it's going to be in the same vein. I mean, the same mix of genre as I just told you. I'm going to try to tackling my language and try to make it more refined every time I use it.
Awesome. Can you give us a little bit of a sneak peek on the narrative or any characters? Or?
I can't say anything. The only thing I can say is that for now, because everything can change in the process of writing.
Yeah.
For now, my main character is a woman who's a serial killer.
Okay.
However, it does not say anything about the plot of the story. It's just what she is.
True. Oh, well, we look forward to that. It sounds good.
Cool.
Thank you very much for the interview, Julia. Thank you very much for your time. And we wish you the very best of luck on release date for Raw.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So that was our interview with Julia. I hope you enjoyed it because I found that very interesting, and I hated that I had to finish. I just wanted to keep going.
Yeah, time went very, very quickly in that
didn't
interview.
It? Yeah. So I did want to just give a little bit of my point of view on the film itself. So things I did like was things like the acting. Great actor, Garance Marillier. She was amazing. She was so natural, and I loved the natural feel of the film. Everything was very. I used the word in the interview back to basics, and I guess what I meant by that was like bringing it to sort of an organic level, and the horror is the same because it was playing on your fears. So like Julia said, things like rashes, like everyone can relate to having a rash, playing on your anxiety in a scene where everything was very claustrophobic, or throwing blood and gore at you because no one likes that, and that's part of people's fears. And then the very basic cannibalism is like a social faux pas. No one wants to talk about it, and I think it really works the way that she brings it through in the film and creates this horror genre that's kind of labeling a new kind of horror where they're not just trying to get you with jump scares, and they're not just trying to play music that will bring it up and then crash down on you. It's sort of this mystery horror, sort of psychological thriller thing, and I absolutely loved it. Some things I didn't like. As always, I'm not a fan of unanswered questions. So I didn't like at the end where I'm kind of answering it myself and I build my own theory. I like to have a clean-cut finish, but that's just me, and anyone could be different there. And I also think the music could be repetitive, but again, that's back down to this organic feel, very basic sort of music that doesn't. You're not supposed to focus on it. You're supposed to focus on the characters and the storyline. So that is completely passable. I would give this a 7.5 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 any day of the week, and even
not a bad review.
Not even that bad. And even though some people might be put off that it's French and it's subtitled, just throw that out the window. Absolutely throw it out the window. It doesn't make a difference. You don't find yourself watching the mouths when they speak and putting the words to it. it's just like reading a book on the side. It's, you know, it's so easy to do, and it's such a great film, and she has absolutely smashed it. And I cannot wait to see the sequel that she's talking about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's certainly going to be quite a while off, though, because of course this
Yes.
film Raw is taking centre stage right now, and it is out on April the 7th, so there's not long to go.
Not long
It's
at all.
on quite a few different cinemas, so I'm sure, you know, if you find it online, you're going to be able to find a screening that it's at. And it is a really good film, like Matt said. It's got so much going on in it, and it's a new type of horror. So if this is your sort of thing, then definitely check it out. April the 7th is when it's out, and it's called Raw. It's really good.